Today, we're diving into one of the most revered, most complex, and, let's be honest, most fought-over cities in all of human history, Jerusalem. It's a place that exists just as much in our collective imagination as it does on the ground. A real, physical city just loaded with thousands of years of spiritual meaning.
This ancient line from the Talmud, it just perfectly sets the stage, doesn't it? For millennia, people have seen Jerusalem not just as some city, but as a place that got a special, almost divine share of beauty and importance, and that idea has captivated billions.
And that brings us to the big question, right? What is it about this specific patch of earth? How did it become the spiritual center for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, sparking both incredible devotion and just devastating conflict?
To even begin to get our heads around Jerusalem, we have to start with this concept from historian Karen Armstrong, sacred geography. It kind of flips our modern thinking on its head. See, you'd think the story comes first, and that's what makes a place holy. But Armstrong suggests it's actually the opposite. People felt something powerful, something divine, in this location first. The myths, the stories, the theology, that all came later as a way to explain that feeling.
And this gets to the incredible power of symbols. Today, we might say something is just a symbol, but back then, oh no. A symbol wasn't separate from the thing it represented. It was a direct link, a conduit. So a sacred place like Jerusalem was seen as a portal, a place where worshipers could actually connect with the divine. It wasn't just a reminder of God, it was a place you could go to experience God. So, keeping that idea in our back pocket, let's look at how the city actually began. And what we're going to see is that its power was never really about who was there first or what we can prove with a shovel. It was built on something much, much stronger.
Here's something that's absolutely crucial to get. Before Jerusalem was famous from the Bible, it was already there. It was a settlement of a Canaanite people called the Jebusites. And this theme of one group arriving and layering their story onto a place already held sacred by another, that's a constant in Jerusalem's story. It's a source of both connection and, well, a whole lot of friction.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Archaeologists have found evidence that, at times, the physical city of Jerusalem was, well, kind of a small, unimportant town. And yet, during those exact same periods, its importance as a mythic, spiritual center was exploding in the minds of people who lived hundreds of miles away. The idea of Jerusalem had become way more powerful than the city itself.
So how did this one location become the ultimate sacred space for three different global faiths? Let's break down how each one layered its own powerful, unique story right on top of this city.
Okay, so for Judaism, the story kicks off about 3,000 years ago. King David conquers the city from the Jebusites and makes it his capital, and it's a total masterstroke. He makes it not just the political capital, but the spiritual heart of the nation, the place where the Ark of the Covenant would finally rest. The name Zion soon comes to mean everything: the city, the holy mountain, the entire land of Israel, and the very soul of the Jewish people.
You can feel the raw intensity of this bond in verses like this one from Psalm 137, which was written during the exile in Babylon. Even when they were physically forced out of the city for centuries, Jerusalem was still the absolute center of Jewish life, the focus of daily prayer, and the enduring symbol of their hope to one day return.
Then Christianity comes along and takes this pre-existing sanctity and completely reframes it. Jerusalem becomes the stage for the most important events in the Christian faith: the final ministry, the crucifixion, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Suddenly, the city's meaning is transformed. It becomes less about an earthly kingdom and more about a spiritual one, the New Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem that stands for salvation for all of humankind.
And then comes Islam. In the very earliest days of the faith, Muslims actually prayed toward Jerusalem, not Mecca. That act, known as the first Qibla, made the city holy right from the start. And that holiness was forever cemented by the Isra and Miraj, the Prophet Muhammad's miraculous night journey to Jerusalem and then his ascension into heaven from the very spot where the Jewish temple had stood. It's this incredible moment that connects Islam to all the prophets that came before.
And you can see it all laid out right here. For Judaism, it's David and Solomon and the building of the first temple. For Christianity, it's Jesus Christ and the world-changing events at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And for Islam, it's the Prophet Muhammad's ascension from the Dome of the Rock. Three totally distinct paths, all leading to the exact same sacred piece of ground.
Okay, so when you pack this much sacred meaning into such a tiny space, yeah, conflict is pretty much baked into the cake. Jerusalem's history is one of constant conquest and change. But here's the thing. Paradoxically, all that struggle didn't weaken belief. It did the exact opposite. This timeline, wow, it barely even scratches the surface. The city has been besieged, destroyed, and rebuilt literally dozens of times. Romans, Persians, Muslims, Crusaders, Ottomans, every new power left its mark. But it's really worth pointing out that moment under Caliph Omar, when Jews who'd been banned by the Christians were actually allowed to come back. It's a period of coexistence that really stands out in an otherwise incredibly turbulent history.
And here's the wild part, the thing you wouldn't expect. Loss and longing, they seem to make the heart grow fonder. For Jews in exile, the memory of Jerusalem became even more precious. For Christians living under Muslim rule, making a pilgrimage was an act of incredible devotion. For Muslims, after the Crusades, taking back the city was a sacred mission. All that hardship literally forged the city into an essential pillar of each faith's identity.
This quote from Karen Armstrong just hits so hard because it gets right to the feeling of it. An attack on a holy site isn't just about a building. It's felt as a deeply personal violation, a physical assault. And in an environment where everyone feels under threat, that bond you have with your sacred space gets tighter, more defensive, and more absolute than ever.
Which brings us right up to the present day. Because in Jerusalem, all this deep, mythic history, it's not in the past. It's happening right now. As Armstrong puts it, history is a dimension of the present.
You can see these ancient claims playing out directly in the modern political conflict. The Israeli position draws on that 3,000-year connection, seeing the city as its eternal, indivisible heart. The Palestinian position is rooted in centuries of Muslim and Arab life in the city, and sees East Jerusalem with its holy sites as the essential capital of a future Palestinian state. These aren't just political arguments, they're profound statements of identity, fueled by centuries of myth and memory.
And to really understand the sheer intensity of it all, get this. The Old City, the place that holds the Western Wall, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and the Dome of the Rock, is less than 1 square kilometer. The entire spiritual focus of billions of people is concentrated in an area you could walk across in about 15 minutes. It's just mind-boggling.
So what's the big takeaway here? In Jerusalem, the past isn't past. It's happening now. Symbolic claims rooted in faith and myth carry every bit as much weight as a legal document. The political conflict we see on the news is completely inseparable from these deep, ancient narratives. And for the people who actually live there, these stories define their daily lives.
And this leaves us with a difficult, final question. When history is this alive, when identity is so deeply intertwined with stone and soil, can these holy places ever be a point of connection rather than a point of eternal conflict? That right there remains Jerusalem's greatest challenge.